I didn't wait for the elevator. I took the stairs 2 at a time, my 64-year-old knees screaming in protest. The stairwell of Toronto General Hospital echoed with my footsteps, each one pounding like a heartbeat I wasn't sure my son still had. 17 minutes ago, I'd been sitting in my study in Oakville, reviewing quarterly reports from the mining operations in Sudbury. 17 minutes ago, my biggest concern was whether to sell our stake in the lithium project. 17 minutes ago, I still believed my son was safe. Then the phone rang. Mr. Carruthers? This is Dr. Anand from Toronto General. Your son Michael has been in a serious accident. You need to come immediately. I don't remember hanging up. I don't remember grabbing my keys. I don't remember the drive down the QEW. I only remember the words, serious accident, and immediately playing on a loop in my skull. I burst through the doors of the ICU, my chest heaving. A nurse looked up, startled. Michael Carruthers, I gasped. My son, where is he? She checked her screen. Room 4. But sir, you can't just... I was already moving. The sight of him stopped me cold. My boy. My strong, capable 35-year-old son who had inherited his mother's gentle eyes and my stubborn jaw. He lay motionless, tubes snaking from his arms, monitors beeping their mechanical lullaby. His face was swollen, bruised, a white bandage wrapped around his head like a grotesque crown. Mr. Carruthers? I turned. A young doctor in blue scrubs approached, her expression carefully neutral in that way medical professionals learn to master. I'm Dr. Anand. We spoke on the phone. What happened to my son? His vehicle was struck by a transport truck on the 401 near Whitby. The impact was on the driver's side. He sustained severe head trauma, multiple fractures, and internal bleeding. We've stabilized him, but he's in a medically induced coma. The next 48 hours are critical. The words hit me like physical blows. Head trauma, coma, critical. Is he going to survive? Dr. Anand hesitated. That hesitation told me everything. We're doing everything we can. He's a fighter. His vitals are stronger than we expected. But I won't lie to you, Mr. Carruthers. It's serious. I nodded slowly, my eyes never leaving my son's face. Where is his wife? Where is Serena? We've been trying to reach her. The number on file goes straight to voicemail. I pulled out my phone. Serena's contact stared back at me. My daughter-in-law of 4 years. The woman my son had fallen hopelessly in love with at a charity gala in Yorkville. The woman who had given me hope that Michael might finally settle down after years of focusing solely on his architecture career. I dialed. Voicemail. I dialed again. Voicemail. I dialed 5 more times over the next hour. Each time, her recorded voice, sweet, professional, utterly unhelpful, asked me to leave a message. By the 3rd hour, worry had transformed into something else, something darker. I called my assistant, Patricia. Pat, I need you to find Serena. Use whatever resources necessary. Credit card activity, phone location, anything. Is everything all right, Mr. Carruthers? No. Michael's in the ICU, and his wife has vanished. Patricia had worked for me for 22 years. She knew when to ask questions and when to simply act. This was the latter. I'll have something within the hour. I sat beside my son's bed, holding his hand. The same hand I'd held when he was 5 and terrified of the dark. The same hand I'd shaken with pride when he graduated from the University of Toronto with honors. The same hand that had trembled slightly when he'd asked me for his mother's engagement ring to give to Serena. She makes me feel alive, Dad, he'd told me. Like I've been sleepwalking through life and finally woke up. I'd had reservations. Serena had appeared seemingly from nowhere. She claimed to be from a small town near Sault Ste. Marie, orphaned young, self-made. Her story was inspiring, perhaps too inspiring. But Michael was happy, truly happy, for the first time since his mother passed from cancer 8 years ago. Who was I to question that? My phone buzzed. Patricia, I found her, Mr. Carruthers. Her credit card was used 2 hours ago at a restaurant in Old Montreal. Le Jardin des Étoiles, Montreal, 300 kilometers from her husband's hospital bed. That doesn't make sense, I said slowly. She told Michael she was visiting a friend in Muskoka this week. There's more. The card has been used extensively in Montreal over the past 3 days. hotels, restaurants, a spa, and... Patricia paused. The hotel reservation is for 2 guests. The room seemed to tilt. 2 guests. A suite at the Ritz-Carlton, under her name, but the concierge records show a male guest checking in with her. I closed my eyes, drew a breath. Book me on the next flight to Montreal. Sir? With Michael in critical condition. Book the flight, Pat. 45 minutes later, I was in a taxi, heading to Billy Bishop Airport. I'd arranged for a private nurse to sit with Michael, with strict instructions to call me the moment anything changed. Dr. Anand had my number. The hospital chaplain had my number. Everyone had my number. Everyone except my daughter-in-law, who apparently couldn't be bothered to answer hers. The flight to Montreal was 53 minutes. 53 minutes to think. 53 minutes to hope I was wrong. 53 minutes to prepare myself for the possibility that I wasn't. The taxi from Pierre Elliott Trudeau Airport delivered me to the Ritz-Carlton just after 9 in the evening. The lobby gleamed with old-world elegance, all marble and chandeliers and hushed conversations in French and English. I approached the front desk. I'm looking for my daughter-in-law, Serena Carruthers. I believe she's a guest here. The clerk smiled politely. I'm sorry, sir, but I cannot confirm guest information without... I placed my black Amex on the counter. Her husband, my son, is dying in a Toronto hospital. She isn't answering her phone. I need to speak with her immediately. The clerk's smile faltered. He glanced at a colleague, then back at me. One moment, please. A manager appeared. More explanations, more polite resistance. Finally, after I threatened to involve the police and the media, a compromise was reached. Mrs. Carruthers left the hotel approximately 2 hours ago with her companion. The doorman recalls them mentioning dinner at L'Atelier. Her companion... I found them at L'Atelier de Joël Robuchon. They were seated in a corner booth, bathed in soft candlelight. Serena wore a red dress I didn't recognize, her dark hair cascading over bare shoulders. She was laughing, actually laughing at something the man across from her had said. The man. I squinted, trying to place him. Tall, athletic build, sandy hair. He looked familiar somehow. Then he turned his head, and my blood turned to ice. Derek Whitmore, Michael's business partner. The man who had co-founded their architecture firm 5 years ago. The man who had stood as best man at my son's wedding. The man who, 3 weeks ago, had sat in my home drinking my scotch and discussing expansion plans for the firm. I watched as Derek reached across the table and took Serena's hand. Watched as he brought it to his lips. Watched as my daughter-in-law smiled at him with an intimacy that made my stomach churn. I could have confronted them then. Part of me wanted to, but 64 years of business had taught me the value of patience, of gathering intelligence before striking. I took out my phone, captured photos. Then I retreated to the shadows and called Patricia. I need everything on Derek Whitmore. Business dealings, personal finances, his relationship with Michael and Serena. I want to know what he had for breakfast 3 years ago. Sir? My daughter-in-law is having an affair with my son's business partner, while my son lies in a coma. A long pause. I'll have a full report by morning. I checked into a hotel down the street. I didn't sleep. I sat by the window, watching the lights of Montreal twinkle like false stars, and I made plans. At 6 in the morning, my phone rang. The hospital. Mr. Carruthers, this is Dr. Anand. Michael's condition has changed. My heart stopped. Changed how? His brain swelling has decreased significantly. We're cautiously optimistic. We may be able to bring him out of the coma within the next few days. I nearly wept with relief. He's going to be okay? The next few days will tell us more. But yes, this is very encouraging news. I thanked her profusely, then hung up and immediately called Patricia. Michael's improving. But before he wakes up, I need to know exactly what Serena and Derek have been doing. And I need to know if this accident was really an accident. Sir, are you suggesting... I'm not suggesting anything. I'm investigating, and I want it done quietly. If there's even a hint that something criminal occurred, I want to know before anyone else does. Patricia's report arrived at noon. I read it in my hotel room, my coffee growing cold beside me. The affair had been going on for at least 18 months. Hotel records, restaurant receipts, flight bookings. The trail was extensive and damning. They'd been careful, but not careful enough. But that wasn't the worst of it. 6 months ago, Derek had quietly begun acquiring shares in the architecture firm. Small purchases, spread across shell companies, designed to avoid triggering notification requirements. He now controlled 42% of the company, just 8% shy of majority control. Michael, who trusted his partner implicitly, still believed he owned 55% of their shared dream. 3 months ago, Serena had added her name to Michael's personal accounts. For convenience, she'd told him. In case anything ever happened, in the past 12 weeks, she'd transferred nearly $300,000 to accounts that Patricia was still trying to trace. And then there was the insurance policy. 2 months ago, Michael had increased his life insurance to $5 million. The beneficiary? Serena. The policy had been Serena's suggestion, according to emails Patricia had obtained. "Just in case, sweetheart," she'd written. "I couldn't bear to lose you. But if something happened, I'd want to be taken care of." If something happened, I read the accident report next. Michael had been driving home from a client meeting in Oshawa. A transport truck had run a red light and struck his BMW at full speed. The truck driver claimed his brakes had failed. He was being treated for minor injuries and had not been charged pending investigation. The truck was owned by a numbered company. That numbered company, after several layers of corporate obscurity, was connected to a holding firm in which Derek Whitmore was a silent investor. Coincidence? Perhaps. But I hadn't built a mining empire by believing in coincidences. I flew back to Toronto that evening. Serena, I learned, had finally received my messages and was en route to the hospital, full of apologies about poor cell service in Muskoka. I met her in the ICU waiting room. She rushed toward me, her face a mask of concern. "Dad, I'm so sorry. I had no idea. My phone wasn't working properly. And when I finally got your messages," I held up my hand. "Save it." She stopped, confusion flickering across her features. "I'm sorry," I said. "Save it." I kept my voice low, controlled. "I know where you were. I know who you were with, and I know what you've done." The mask slipped, just for a moment. Something cold and calculating peered out from behind her pretty face. Then the mask returned, and she was all wounded innocence. "I don't know what you're talking about. I was in Muskoka, at Jennifer's cottage. You were at the Ritz-Carlton in Montreal with Derek Whitmore. You dined at L'Atelier last night. You wore a red dress. He kissed your hand over dessert." Her face went pale. "You've been having an affair for 18 months. You've stolen $300,000 from my son's accounts. Derek has been quietly seizing control of their company. And 2 months ago, you convinced Michael to take out a $5 million life insurance policy. That's not you can't prove. I can prove all of it." I stepped closer. "The only question I haven't answered yet is whether you and your lover tried to kill my son." "I would never." "The truck that hit him was owned by a company connected to Derek. The driver's brakes failed. Convenient, isn't it?" "That's insane." "We didn't. It was an accident." "Maybe, maybe not. But here's what's going to happen now." I pulled a folder from my briefcase. "You're going to sign these papers. They give me power of attorney over Michael's affairs until he recovers. They remove your name from all his accounts. They nullify the prenuptial agreement you somehow convinced him to revise 6 months ago." "I'm not signing anything." "Then I go to the police with everything I have. The fraud, the theft, the suspiciously convenient accident. And even if they can't prove attempted murder, they can certainly prove financial crimes. You'll spend years in court, your reputation destroyed, every sordid detail of your affair splashed across the newspapers." I watched her calculate, watched the wheels turn behind those lovely, deceitful eyes. "What's to stop me from denying everything? It's your word against mine." "It's not my word. It's bank records, hotel receipts, security footage, and an increasingly interesting trail of corporate documentation. My lawyers have been quite thorough. Michael will never believe you. Michael is in a coma, partly because of you. When he wakes up, I'll have proof of everything." I placed the papers on a nearby table. "Sign these, disappear quietly, and I won't pursue criminal charges. Refuse. And I will spend every dollar I have ensuring you and Derek pay for what you've done." She stared at the papers, stared at me. Her hands trembled slightly. "I loved him," she said quietly. "In the beginning, I really did. I don't care what you felt in the beginning. I care that you chose to betray him in the end." She signed. Dealing with Derek was more complicated. I couldn't simply threaten him into compliance. He knew the stakes. He'd calculated the risks. He believed incorrectly that he was too clever to be caught. So I destroyed him systematically. First, I reached out to my contacts in the financial sector. Within 48 hours, the banks financing his real estate developments began demanding immediate repayment of outstanding loans. Regulatory bodies suddenly took an interest in his construction permits. His line of credit evaporated overnight. Then I began acquiring his debts. Through intermediaries, I purchased every obligation Derek Whitmore owed: his mortgage, his car loan, his corporate debts. I didn't just want to ruin him, I wanted to own him. Finally, I went after the architecture firm itself. Michael had given Derek his trust, but he hadn't given him full control. The firm's founding documents contained a clause, one Derek had apparently forgotten, that required unanimous partner approval for any ownership transfer exceeding 5%. Derek's secret purchases were invalid. My lawyers filed an injunction. Derek's 42% stake was frozen pending investigation. The employees, many of whom had grown suspicious of Derek's recent behavior, were informed of the situation. A full audit was initiated. Within a week, Derek Whitmore was facing bankruptcy, criminal investigation for securities fraud, and the complete collapse of his professional reputation. I met him at his office on a gray Tuesday morning. He was sitting alone in the conference room, staring at a wall of architectural drawings, projects that would never be completed now. "You must be very proud of yourself," he said without looking up. "Pride has nothing to do with it. I was going to make this company great, greater than Michael ever could. He doesn't have the vision, the drive. My son built this company from nothing. He designed homes that people live in, offices where they work, schools where their children learn. What did you build? Shell companies and betrayal?" Derek finally met my eyes. He never appreciated what he had. Not the company, not Serena. He took everything for granted. "So you decided to take it all from him." "I decided to take what I deserved." I shook my head slowly. "You deserve nothing. But you're going to get everything you've earned." I placed a document on the table. "The police would like to discuss the accident with you. The transport company has been cooperative. It seems the brake failure wasn't quite as accidental as initially reported." Derek's face went gray. "They're going to charge you with attempted murder, Derek. Serena has already given a statement implicating you." "She wouldn't." "She did. Self-preservation is a powerful motivator." I stood. "My lawyers will be in touch regarding the civil suits. I recommend you find good legal representation. You're going to need it." I walked out of that office and never looked back. 3 days later, Michael opened his eyes. I was there when it happened, sitting in the same chair I'd occupied for hours each day, reading aloud from a book about Arctic exploration that we'd both loved when he was young. His eyelids fluttered, his fingers twitched. And then he looked at me. "Dad?" I wept. For the first time since his mother's funeral, I wept openly and without shame. "Welcome back, son." The recovery was slow. There were surgeries, physical therapy, endless medical appointments. Michael's left arm would never regain full mobility. He walked with a slight limp, but he was alive, and he was healing. Telling him the truth about Serena and Derek was the hardest conversation of my life. We were in his room at the rehabilitation center in Hamilton, 3 weeks after he'd woken. He was strong enough now to hear it, the doctors said. I wasn't sure I was strong enough to tell it. "There's something I need to show you," I said. "Something about the accident, about Serena." I watched his face as I laid out the evidence. The affair, the financial manipulation, the insurance policy, the connection between Derek and the truck that had nearly killed him. He didn't cry. He didn't rage. He simply sat very still, staring at the documents spread across his blanket. "How long?" he finally asked. At least 18 months. I trusted them, both of them. I would have given them anything. I know, son. They tried to kill me. For money. For the company. Yes. He looked up at me. What did you do? I told him everything. The investigation. The confrontation with Serena. The systematic destruction of Derek's empire. The criminal charges pending against both of them. You did all that while I was unconscious? I would do far more to protect you. Michael was quiet for a long moment. Then he reached out and took my hand. Thank you, Dad. Serena's trial lasted 3 weeks. She pleaded guilty to fraud and theft charges in exchange for testimony against Derek. The judge, unmoved by her tearful expressions of remorse, sentenced her to 4 years in prison. Derek's trial was longer. The attempted murder charge was eventually reduced to conspiracy to commit bodily harm, but combined with the securities fraud and various financial crimes, he received 12 years. On the day of Derek's sentencing, I received a letter from him. I read it once, then burned it. He blamed me for his downfall. He blamed Michael for not recognizing his talents. He blamed Serena for betraying him. He blamed everyone except himself. That's the thing about people like Derek. They never see themselves as the villain. They're always the hero of their own twisted story. Michael rebuilt his life slowly. He took control of the architecture firm, his firm, as it always should have been. He hired new partners, people of integrity who shared his vision. The company thrived. He dated occasionally but remained cautious. The scars Serena had left weren't visible, but they were deep. Trust, once shattered, is difficult to restore. I understood. I'd felt the same way after his mother died. Some wounds take years to heal. Some never heal completely, but you learn to live with them. You learn to love again, carefully, knowing that loss is always possible. 2 years after the accident, Michael called me on a Sunday morning. Dad, there's someone I'd like you to meet. Her name was Claire. She was a landscape architect who'd worked on one of his projects. She had a kind smile, intelligent eyes, and most importantly, a transparency that Serena had never possessed. When Claire spoke, you could see her thoughts forming in real time. There were no calculations, no hidden agendas. She knows everything, Michael told me privately. About Serena, about Derek, about what happened. I showed her the scars and told her the whole ugly truth. She didn't run. Do you love her? I'm learning to. I'm taking it slow. That's wise. Dad? He paused. I never thanked you properly for what you did, for saving my life, not just with the medical care, but by stopping Serena and Derek before they could finish what they started. You're my son. There's nothing I wouldn't do for you. I know. That's what makes it so meaningful. He married Claire 18 months later, in a small ceremony at a vineyard in Niagara on the lake. I stood as his best man. The sun was setting over the vineyards, painting the sky in shades of gold and rose, and I thought about how far we'd come from that terrible night in the hospital. My son was alive. He was happy. He was building a future with someone who deserved him. And the people who had tried to take everything from him were paying the price for their treachery. Some might call what I did revenge. I prefer to think of it as justice. The legal system moves slowly, and sometimes the guilty find ways to escape accountability. Sometimes you have to take matters into your own hands, not to play God, but to protect what matters most. I'm an old man now, 67 years old, with more years behind me than ahead. I've made mistakes in my life, plenty of them, but protecting my son wasn't one of them. If you're listening to this, maybe you're facing your own betrayal. Maybe someone you trusted has revealed themselves to be something monstrous. Maybe you're wondering what to do, how to respond, whether justice is even possible. Here's what I've learned. Justice doesn't always come from courtrooms and judges. Sometimes it comes from a father who refuses to let his son be destroyed. Sometimes it comes from the willingness to fight dirty when the enemy has abandoned all rules. And sometimes, on the other side of that fight, there's something beautiful waiting. Redemption, healing, a future you thought was lost forever. Michael and Claire had a daughter last spring. They named her Margaret, after my late wife. She has her grandmother's eyes and her father's stubborn jaw, and when she laughs, it sounds like the future. I hold her sometimes, this tiny perfect creature, and I think about what could have been if I hadn't flown to Montreal, if I hadn't dug into the truth, if I had accepted Serena's lies and Derek's manipulations. My granddaughter might never have existed. My son might be in a grave. Instead, he's building a legacy. He's creating something meaningful. He's living the life he deserves, a life that was almost stolen from him by people who saw him not as a person, but as an obstacle to their greed. They underestimated the one thing they should have feared most, a father's love. That love drove me through the darkest moments. It gave me strength when I had none. It turned grief into determination and helplessness into action. And in the end, love won. Not the twisted, selfish love that Serena and Derek called an affair. Not the possessive, greedy love that sees other people as tools to be used. But real love. The kind that sacrifices, the kind that protects, the kind that builds rather than destroys. My son is alive because of that love. My granddaughter exists because of that love. And Serena and Derek are paying the price for underestimating it. If that's vengeance, then so be it. I'll wear that label proudly. Because some things are worth fighting for. Some people are worth protecting. And some betrayals demand a response that echoes through the years, reminding everyone who hears it that treachery has consequences. This is my story. This is my shattered vengeance, rebuilt into something stronger. And I would do it all again, without a moment's hesitation. For my son, for my granddaughter, for the memory of my wife, who would have expected nothing less. For family, always for family.